Project 2025 is a political initiative published by the Heritage Foundation that aims to promote conservative and right-wing policies to reshape the United States federal government and consolidate executive power. It's a 922-page manifesto. It's the 9th edition of the Heritage Foundation's Mandate for Leadership. Its first edition was published in 1981. The Heritage Foundation was founded in 1973 during the Richard Nixon administration. Its purpose was a public policy research institute, generally described as a think tank. Project 2025 is a presentation of conservative ideas configured to adhere to the likes of the next conservative president-elect. Pretty much, they did the research, they've got the blueprint handled, they just need an active president to approve the procedures.
The project has 4 main pillars: a policy plan, a personnel database, an online academy, and a playbook for the president's first 180 days in office.
We can be ready to hit the ground running on day 1 of the next administration.
The first pillar is a policy agenda that focuses on dismantling the so-called administrative state, or what some conservatives call the deep state.
Either the deep state destroys America, or we destroy the deep state.
The deep state, shadow government, administrative state, or bureaucrats are all referring to synonymous entities. These terms are used to identify particular groups of people within government who have a hand in legislation but are not elected officials. During Trump's first term, it's said that he and his cabinet exploited the power of the president. But with that being said, Trump and his administration couldn't and didn't get approved, a lot of which they wanted to implement into law. Trump and his fellow conservative counterparts blame this on the power of the deep state.
We want to meet the man writing the game plan for Trump's second administration. Vote believes that in his first term, Trump's agenda was frustrated by what he calls the deep state. So Vote is planning a radical centralization of government power under the president, firing civil servants and ending the independence of agencies like the FBI and DOJ.
80% of my time is working on the plans of what's necessary to take control of these bureaucracies, and we are working doggedly on that.
Which leads us to Schedule F.
I'm Chad Wolf. I'm the former acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security under President Trump. I'm the current executive director of the America First Policy Institute.
Former Cabinet Secretary Chad Wolf remains a Trump loyalist and is ready to serve once again if his old boss wins in November. The America First Policy Institute he now leads is full of pro-Trump populists who all share Project 2025's vision of a civil service stacked with true believers. To achieve this, they're proposing a re-elected Donald Trump brings in what's called Schedule F, an executive order that would allow the president to fire people at will.
And the idea with Schedule F is very, very simple, which is if you're in a policy-making role and you're working against the president, we have the ability to remove you because that's how it should be, right?
So what is Schedule F? Schedule F was a job classification created by a Trump executive order to give more control over federal employees and policy roles, making them easier to hire and fire. It covered positions influencing policy, but critics say its broad definition could impact far more, including office staff, scientists, and IT workers. Supporters argue Schedule F would make government more efficient and accountable, but unions warn it risks making nonpartisan roles politically driven. The National Treasury Employees Union says Schedule F could strip essential workers of their civil service protections, threatening their job security and the neutrality of federal services. Critics argue this would reverse a century of civil service reforms, potentially allowing political appointees to replace skilled, nonpartisan experts. While some say it boosts accountability, others argue it could weaken the foundation of a non-political federal workforce. All right, so Schedule F was repealed by President Biden just 3 days into his term, so reinstating it under Trump would be more complicated due to Biden regulations that went into effect this past May.
Also looks to focus on unitary executive authority, which virtually eliminates checks and balances within the government. The theory argues that based on constitutional law, the president possesses all the executive power and can therefore control subordinate officers and agencies of the executive branch. This is supported by Article 2 of the Constitution.
Underpinning many of Project 2025's policy proposals is a legal principle called the unitary executive theory. It is based on a clause in the Constitution that says the executive power is vested in the president.
Project 2025 assumption is that the president has something called unitary executive authority. This gives him enormous untested powers to essentially do whatever he wants and reduces the power of Congress to check those powers.
Conservative Supreme Court justices, like Justice Samuel Alito, have signaled support for the unitary executive theory and skepticism of federal agencies.
The current Supreme Court has shown itself to be very open to claims that the president has enormous executive authority and so should be able to hire and fire people at will.
Article 2 of the Constitution clearly states that the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States. And the person whom we elect to run that executive branch, the U.S. president, must actually once again be the person who actually runs that executive branch of government. That is the final myth that once we debunk it, we have democratic accountability once again, rather than puppets sitting in the White House, as I worry we have today, instruments of an administrative state.
They also want to restore Christian nationalism. It is said that this country's foundation was rooted in Christianity, which is another story within itself, but pretty much these people think the United States should be governed based on the Christian moral perspective, and our laws should reflect these values as well. Russ Vought, a co-author of the Project 2025 mandate and president of the Center for Renewing America, looks to embellish America with Christian pride.
With loyalists installed in key government agencies and armed with his playbook, Vought believes a radical Christian nationalist agenda can be realized under a second Trump presidency.
The Heritage Foundation has been working on this agenda since 2017. They felt there hasn't been a president who aligned with their conservative views to get this mandate completed until Trump. Trump seems to fit within their narrative. And I'd like to end off with this. The media wants the public to believe that Project 2025 is Trump's plan, but it's more of a proposal than anything. Now, if Trump agrees with their blueprint and puts people in a position to get this agenda implemented, then it's inevitable. But Trump doesn't seem to personally be directly involved with Project 2025.
We were always going off of, if Donald Trump was head of this agency, what would he do with it? Yeah. What has he said? Yeah. And then what do we know from the first term? And that's how we've been approaching this.
Russ Vought said clear as day they shaped this manifesto based off of Trump. But skeptics proclaim that this is just a ploy to diminish/disguise Trump's involvement. But remember, the Heritage Foundation has been coming up with these mandates since 1981. What happened was they noticed from Trump's first term, he approved 2/3 of their 2017 edition mandate. So this go round, just in case Trump got reelected, they configured a complete mandate that's tailored just for Trump. It's called Project 2025.